Yo, what's poppin' YouTube? Welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Lesage here. I'm back from my travels for back-to-back Toronto and Merida Regional Championships, and we are still in the Phantasmal Flames metagame. Ascended Heroes has kind of released, kind of a delayed, staggered release. So Phantasmal Flames is going to be legal until March 6th. Now, if you've been playing on PTCG Live, Ascended Heroes is live on there. From a competitive standpoint, it's a really interesting argument. But since I am preparing for EUIC, helping those prepare for Santiago, Sydney, Seattle, Puerto Rico, etc., this is the format that we're going to be following in. So if you're playing League Cups, League Challenges, any kind of major event, Phantasmal Flames is where we're at. How this video is going to work out is I've collected the top 10 best decks based off of my tournament experiences, based off of the ongoing global metagame, and more. I kind of rank those decks against each other, and I've included all the lists in this video. Some of the lists are my own, a combination of inspired by lists and top performing regional championship winning lists. So basically a great place to get kicked off with how the metagame is shaping up. If that sounds great to you, give this video a like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments which deck you're kind of rocking with right now. Also in the pinned comments, there will be access to the copy and pastable versions of these decks. You're gonna have to click on the one in this link, and then you can import, export, however you want from there. Kicking things off, we have Liam Halliburton's 60 card list from the Toronto Regional Championships. So we have a regional championship winner and a previous regional champion runner-up. Well, not previous, anyways. They came first and second at a regionals this year. Let me yap. Enzor EX is somehow a very strategic deck, even though you can really only copy your Enz Reshiram right now. Having options to use Toad Scroll to kind of slow your opponents down with Slime Mold Colony is a tale as old as time when it comes to Pokemon. We have these kind of support pseudo control cards, and then of course we have Mega Lopunny, because why not have another big attack? We don't really have too many options to copy. Let's roll with that. Monkey Dory is pretty much good in all of the other decks, and this deck should just be fairly consistent. I think when it comes to Enzor, there's no one better to talk to when it comes to Liam Halliburton, and it's not really one of those decks that is very popular. It can be quite good in the hands of a great pilot, but if you're not necessarily knowing what you're doing with this deck, it's probably one to really kind of keep off to the side. Maybe pick up the cards for it, because it seems like it might be good in the future. But for now, I think that Enzor EX, it's kind of decently positioned, pretty skill-based, which puts it a little bit lower than expected. That's why we see top players like Piper, Liam, see success when they play it, and other players don't really have that great day 2 conversion. Let's see what we got going on at number 9. At number 9, we have a very similar to Emma Hagen's second place regional championship list from Birmingham. She's been the absolute Flareon EX GOAT, and this deck's kind of dethroned Terrabox in the format. Now, it's one of those things where I think that Terrabox is similar enough to this. Like, I mean, they're built off the same engine, feature a lot of the main cards. So if you ever want to help support me a little bit more, I do have my Metafy kind of tiers, the Horsey tier for $5 a month. If you check out my Metafy, I have other lists, including a Terrabox version. So there's always variants of decks. Regardless, Flareon EX is good because fire types are good against Gholdengo. Our format is based around a handful of decks: Gholdengo, Gardevoir, Dragapult, and those decks really dictate how the rest of the decks go. So Enzor is good because it has Slime Mold Colony, and it can also be Dark type against Gardevoir. So a lot of the decks are really vying against the top few decks, while also trying to hide their inconsistencies or struggles against other decks on this list. Flareon EX is pretty good because we have access to fire type. We have grass type that can be good against Charizard and Marnie's Grimmsnarl. We got a few other options like Wellspring that can knock out some other stage 2 Pokemon. And of course, this deck is tricky enough where you got enough like little bits and pieces there. I mean, there's ways to knock out Pokemon out of nowhere. However, there are going to be some struggle matchups like Dragapult and Gardevoir here. So kind of a tough one, but you might be able to beat your opponent through the sheer power of surprise. The only change that I made from Emma's list was I think Watchtower is on the rise, and I cut out an EV EX for the Colorful Friends EV, and I also cut out one of the Hoot Hoots 80 HP for the 70 HP Hoot Hoot. I mean, nothing really big, just swapping for my own personal preference. And that's where like sometimes I think it's cool to be a player. But for right now, I think Emma just knows exactly what she's doing in this deck. Similar to Enzor, this deck is fairly technical, so if you're looking for an easy to play deck, this might not be the best choice. However, it is really cool, and I do like all of the prize pack stamps that we saw in Prize Pack Series 7. So if you're a prize pack bling addict like your boy me, you can definitely get a bunch of those from Prize Pack Series 7. Rumbling from the depths where this deck was hidden for the past few weeks, months, is Raging Bolt EX. One of the big surprises when it came to the Toronto Regional Championships and Merida, we saw Yurko and co kind of play this deck, got a second place finish at Toronto, and Yurko made a symmetrical cut when it comes to Merida. And Raging Bolt is now kind of a Terra Box-esque deck. Having access to Raging Bolt for knocking out Pokemon. You have that grass type that can be great against Marnies or Charizard. Mega Kangaskhan gives us a little bit more draw if necessary. Sandy Shocks can be great to accelerate energies out of nowhere, especially when you have cards like Energy Switch. So you have that Bellowing Thunder fodder. However, it's a pretty strong attacker too if you need to knock out something that is weak to fighting. The Wellspring does give you a bit of an answer against Dragapult and Gardevoir, so this might just be the best way to be rocking this deck right now. Raging Bolt is a deck that kind of fell from graces after Christian Labella won the Milwaukee Regional Championships last season, and here we are where the deck is kind of entering back into the top 10. So even if a deck is dormant for a little while, it's always good to have those cards off to the side. If you ever, if you sold your Raging Bolts in a fit of rage, check out our sponsors, Kayfabe Cards. They would gladly help you kind of build up your collection. And they are at most regionals as merchants, so be sure to check them out. I might even be behind the kind of booth, so if you ever need any help, be sure to come up and say hi. Let's see what we got going on at number 7. Another deck that has found its way back into the metagame is Dragapult Charizard. Now, this is a deck where, like, I'll be real, I think on one hand, I really like the idea of a two-prong approach where you have two big stage 2 attackers. They can kind of divide and conquer, and that's a really good strategy in a lot of cases. However, when we look at Pokemon, typically decks that are more pure form tend to do a little bit better. Straight up Gardevoir, I think Henry Chow kind of perfected that 60. Dragapult, Dusknoir, we saw Andrew Hedrick kind of get that 60 to where it is. We look at Gholdengo. Gholdengo has been refined over time. So when we look at these decks where it's just like they only have like really one big focus, this deck has two focuses, and I'm like, I think that might take away from it a little bit. However, we did see it come second place at Merida Regional Championships with Jesper Eriksson playing Oscar Madsen's list from the Danish Kitchen. So they've been cooking up some cool stuff over there. Be sure to check out their Metafy if you haven't got a chance. And I think that this is a cool concept of a deck. I mean, you have a lot of things that, like, you can use Charizard with Dracloak as a draw engine. You could use Dragapult with Charizard as a way to accelerate energies. And of course, using Unfair Stamp is quite cool. Having Fire type, Dark type attackers can be quite relevant in the metagame. So I actually just built this deck up physically. And I think it's a good rounded approach towards our current metagame. So if you're looking for a solid deck for EUIC, I think that this one's kind of getting into the like really solid territory of just decks that work. And I mean, I won a league challenge with this deck like a year ago, right? Like it's not like I think it's awful or that I won't play it. It's just I usually think that it's better to play one stage 1 Pokemon or one stage 2 Pokemon. However, Charizard and Dragapult are both so good, and there's that synergy between that fire type energy requirement. So we'll see who else cooks up more with this deck, especially with Phantasmal Flames being legal for a while. I think that this deck might see a little bit more results coming at EUIC, Sydney, Santiago, Seattle, and more. We're almost there at the halfway point of this video, and we have Mega Absol EX made by the GOAT himself, Tord Reklev. So he has put this deck on the map as the OG creator. We saw it around Milwaukee Regionals this season, and since then, Tord's kind of been tinkering with it every single tournament, winning the Las Vegas Regional Championships. And now we saw his most recent build of the deck from Birmingham Regionals, and that's the Mega Absol EX with Risky Runes. Now, Risky Runes is an interesting card where we can put damage on our Pokemon as they enter play, same thing with our opponent, which does really play nicely with Monkey Dory, giving ourselves options to place damage counters on our opponent's Pokemon for terminal period, and or getting to those higher numbers when it comes to Moltres to knock out our opponent's fire weak Pokemon. I really do think that this kind of tech box of using Mega Kangaskhan for draw, Monkey Dory for damage counter placements, using Claw of Darkness to ruin your opponent's hand, and healing your Pokemon, or kind of pseudo healing, taking them out of play with Penny, really does allow this deck to be pretty cool. Mega Absol is like one of those decks where I could see it falling down a little bit. However, I do think Risky Runes with Mega Absol does allow for some really cool gameplay. And as a basic Mega Pokemon, we do have that opportunity for a lot of HP. It's hard to deal with early game. And especially when you're practicing with something like a Bravery Charm on it, you're just putting a Bravery Charm. It's now at 330. Like, that's a lot of HP for a basic Pokemon. So as much as we live in a world where Gholdengo and Gardevoir can pretty much wipe anything off the face of the planet, some decks just can't deal with that early game HP, and you can have some cool options. I also like having Yveltal in this deck so that you're able to just kind of clutch your opponents, retreat lock them as much as possible. So there's options here. I think it's cool. And number 5, we have Danzard. Now, Danzard's kind of been the huge talk of the town, one of the newer decks on format, or the newer takes of Charizard, ever since we saw Nikolai win a European Regional Championships. Now, that same player has top 8'd again, another deck that's OG from Oscar Madsen. So again, cooking 2 decks in the top 10 is actually a huge feature when it comes to a metagame that's like kind of solved. So I think definitely huge respects over there. And I think that this deck's awesome, right? Like, you have access to your Fan Rotom. Fan Rotom searches out the pieces you need for Hoot Hoots, Noctowls, Pidgeys. Then you have options to use Dawn to search out whatever pieces you're missing from there, grabbing like a Terapagos, Pidgeot, and a Noctowl, whatever you need. And then you can basically have these huge board states where it's almost impenetrable. Now, this deck can sometimes be inconsistent if you miss one of those pieces. Like any combo heavy deck, sometimes it just takes one loose screw to kind of mess up everything. You just have wheels flying off everywhere. But I think this is a really interesting take on Charizard, the best current take on Charizard. However, it has kind of slightly edged out of the top 4. I've been going back and forth. Should this deck be 4th? Should this deck be 5th? And right now, I got to give it to another deck that's broken into kind of the huge top 4. So I think 4th and 5th are just kind of outside of the top 3. Like, obviously that makes sense. But in terms of like, this 5th place is significantly higher than Absol at 6th place. Same thing with 4th place. So that's where the pedestal is just like, I don't know. 6th through 10th are like whatever. Most of them were like kind of new decks. That's cool. 4th and 5th are kind of like that like bronze metal kind of thing. And then the top 4 are kind of, or the top 3 are really ruling the format. So we'll see exactly which decks kind of pop in there. Again, included into my Discord is a regular Charizard Pidgeot build that's a lot different than this. So I kind of ranked them as like the B versions of these decks. So if you want to see exactly what a Charizard Pidgeot Lopunny deck looks like, be sure to check that out in my Discord. A huge riser in the metagame is going to be Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX. Now, this deck was absolutely in the depths with Raging Bolt down there, probably holding hands, being like, someone please take us to the top. And we had the boy Sunny Rajir took the deck all the way to a 1st place finish at Merida, but not without noticing. We saw that Jordan Nell and Kieran Farah both had top cut finishes at Toronto and Merida respectively, which is really putting this deck on the map. We saw a lot of really solid placements beneath those as well. So Marnie's Grimmsnarl is kind of back, taking a cue from those other decks that we've seen, like Enzor. We see Toadscruel. This is probably the best Toadscruel deck out of all of them. And it's kind of been Sunny's take on the deck, where they've been playing this deck for like a few months now. And it's great to see that they finally got their huge flowers, their big bouquet, where they are able to have a decent matchup and everything. Because like Gardevoir should be relatively good because you are a dark type Pokemon. Frostlass does give you a lot of options, and with Monkey Dory. Against Dragapult, it's giving you some more options. Against Gholdengo, you have access to Toadscruel. Against Charizard, we have ways to go cool Devo plays. And if you think about like kind of where we're at with the metagame, like this deck, you can kind of talk yourself in a circle where it is pretty good. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think that a deck like Gholdengo might be able to get around a Toadscruel. I think a deck like Gardevoir might be able to outplay a Marnie's Grimmsnarl. But when it comes to a catch-all deck, I think this deck has a fairly convincing matchup spread. And it's something that I think we're going to see a few more players play in the future. I've also included kind of the OG version that both Kieran and Jordan played in my Discord, so be sure to check that out if you are a Horsey tier subscriber. But Marnie's is back. Definitely pick up those cards if you sold them in a fit of rage. I think it's going to be good for a little bit now. At number 3, we have Pult Noir, Dragapult Dusknoir. Absolutely one of the 3 kind of holy decks in our format. Now, these decks have kind of put themselves a little bit above and beyond everything else, and I think it kind of rules the format in a lot of ways. Having a solid matchup spread against everything, being skill-based enough, while also linear, where you're able to kind of rock this deck on a kind of, I like to call it a TV dinner instruction deck. You're like, go second, use Buddy Buddy Poffins, get Dreepies, get out Duskalls, use Badoo, Itchy Pollen, evolve, Itchy Pollen, then try to decimate your opponent. Dragapult has been one of our longest standing competitive decks since it basically came out in Twilight Masquerade, and it looks to be one of the best decks going forward. So if you're looking to pick up some cards that are post-rotation proof, I'd recommend picking up a lot of the core staples for this deck. This list is based off of Michael Pramelot, one of the legendary players, probably one of the greatest old heads of all time. They kind of went out of they got out of judge retirement because they've been an active like tier S judge in our circuit. And they put Rare Candy in their list. I was like, okay, fine. You sold me on Rare Candy. He explained to me why while we were hanging out in Mexico. And yeah, kind of back on there. We have access to Moltres now to improve our Gholdengo matchup. That was a little bit shaky before. And yeah, Gardevoir is still going to be a toughy matchup. However, everything else is generally pretty good. Marnie's is something to consider as we go forward. However, I think this deck just has enough strength where you could just win. Cool deck, very cool deck, but it's not number 2 or number 1. So let's move on to those finalist decks. Our runner-up deck of the week is going to be Gholdengo Lunatone. Now, I went with the Prime Catcher build. I've been a fan of Prime ever since I kind of got off Precious Charlie at both Toronto and Merida Regionals. I made day 2 at both of them, playing a Precious Charlie build. And it's just not as strong as Prime, and I do not think it's just as strong as Box. Like, it's definitely the solid 3rd pick, but there's obviously merit for different A-specs. And I think that you could be playing a cool build with like Survival Brace, or you could be playing a cool build with Hero's Cape. A lot of the times, like, it's just like depends on how much you want to cook. I think Gholdengo is kind of getting more or less solved. I experimented with some cool Monkey Dory Mega Lopunny less list based off what Stefan Ivanov and friends played at the Birmingham Regional Championships. Those were cool. I posted those on my X, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. Overall, Gholdengo, I kind of like this straight up build. You have enough answers for Mirror, you have enough answers for Gardevoir to some degree. Maybe that's Cope, maybe it's not. But I do like the Premium Power Pro Vitality for Mirror. I do like Hops Cramorant because it could also be strong against other attackers like Furlish, and I think Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking is really cool when it comes down to it. I like the idea of Gholdengo. It's like, this has definitely been the main deck that I've been playing. So my next level thought process when it comes down to it is going to be, I like looking at space constraint measures that are really cool. So being able to play Prime Catcher to reduce a Professor Turo. And I think that's what led me down the rabbit hole of Precious Charlie, because it allowed me to cut down on how many nest balls and stuff I played. However, it's sometimes better to have more utility cards like Prime Catcher. So overall, this list, very cool. I've also in my Discord, like I said, have the Precious Charlie build, and I have the Secret Box build as well. So be sure to check those out if you want to see exactly what's going on with the Dango. What's going to be our number 1 deck of the week? I'm sure it's pretty easy to guess at this point because our format's been stale and pretty guessable. I mean, although this week we did see a lot of shifts, there's only one number 1 deck, and the number 1 deck of the week is Dramatic pause. Gardevoir EX up in this house. We got the Henry Chow 60, arguably the best Gardevoir player in the world, one of the best players in the game, and him and his friends usually kind of dictate what Gardevoir looks like. And it's kind of a monopoly at this point. Like, I think it's one of those things where I'm waiting for rotation to see exactly what kind of decks they rock with next. But regardless, this build is his most recent build that people played at both Toronto and Merida Regionals. There might be another Henry Chow 60 going into Santiago, Sydney, EUIC, etc. Usually I just check out the Chow Discord or get one of my friends too, and we kind of go from there. There's also a Jelly build. Again, I have that available in my Discord. I mean, feel free to check out the Chow one, but whatever. It's one of those things where I try to keep everything, including the variants of the decks. This build having access to cool plays with Luxurious Cape, giving yourself a lot of HP with either Screamtail or Frillish. Gives yourself certainly some options. There's also some cool Monkey Dory plays you can make, but regardless, Gardevoir has been our number one deck. It's kind of been flip-flopping between 1 and 3. I think that Gardevoir in the hands of a strong player, we already saw it win Toronto, we already saw it do incredibly well at Toronto and Merida. I think Gardevoir is well poised to just see success, and I think with the absolute best players playing it for the next big tournament, which is going to be EUIC, we're probably going to see Gardevoir do quite well for itself. So that's really where our metagame kind of lets up. Again, lists are available in the pinned comments. Other lists and more frequently updated lists are going to be available in my Discord server if you're a MetaFi Horsey tier subscriber. I hate to always sound like I'm shilling product, but like, it's one of those things. If you want to support me for $5 a month, you can gain access to all my lists, and I tinker, I put lists in there, and I take requests. So if you're like, yo, Zach, what's a Mega Lucario list look like? I got you. I'll build one. It's no sweat off my back. I collect and build all these cards on a pretty frequent basis. I sit there some days and I'm just like, I'm gonna sort cards. I'm gonna think about post rotation. So yeah, anyways, blah, blah, blah. Still doing active coaching. So if anyone's trying to improve their game, hit me up. I do have some space this week before I leave for London for EUIC this weekend. I'm leaving a little bit early so I could celebrate my birthday in London instead of flying on my birthday. I'm a February 9th kind of guy. So if anyone else here is an Aquarius, a February 9th baby, or just wants to say happy birthday to you, boy, I'm celebrating my 34th birthday soon. So if you see me at EUIC, be sure to come up and say hi. I will gladly take prize pack card donations. I'm a prize pack fiend. I don't know if anyone follows me on other social media, but I posted a list on my X, my Facebook, stuff like that, of cards that I'm looking for. Basically, Hollow Energy prize pack are going to be the death of me. The other cards like Hollow Boss's Orders, Hollow Ionos, and a few of the EXs and A-Specs are always on my mission. I always play with full prize pack bling. And sometimes it's a little bit hard, right? Like for Toronto, I think I spent more time hunting for cards than testing while I was in the Toronto area. Regardless, rants, cool stuff. Things are going great with me. I'm really excited to pump out some more videos this week. Since I got back from Mexico, I was basically super feeling sick all last week. I ate some bad gas station tamales from Mexico. That's kind of killed my vibe. So I've just been kind of laying low. But stay tuned for more great stuff. I'm also in the process of working on a Gholdengo guide. So if you want to kind of hear exactly what I want to talk about in depth when it comes to Gholdengo, that's probably going to be releasing this week too. Much love to everyone who's listened to this Rant Fest and Yap Fest and supports my content and the Shuffle Squad. Stay tuned. I'll see everyone at EUIC, Seattle, and Montreal area tournaments. Until then, stay tuned for more content. Peace out and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content that we have today, and maybe you'll click on one of these other videos, enjoy those videos too. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what video you want to watch next. Until next time, we'll catch up with all y'all later. Have yourself a great day.